welcome to a little early morning Vinyasa yoga. So I have 2 blocks. I'm going to use them in the following way. I'm going to put one block up this way, and I'm going to put one block down this way in the hopes that this will feel nice. Now blocks can be a little firm, and if you have a little blanket handy, you can soften the edges of blocks by putting a little blanket over them. You could also use like some throw pillows. You just might need 2 of them, or you might use a rolled up blanket in place of the blocks instead. There might be little curious creatures hanging out with me here this morning. I'm going to angle myself just a little bit so that I have room to stretch my legs out in my little living room space here. So the first thing I need to do is figure out where the blocks go. And for me, generally, I like the bottom of the block to be just below my shoulder blades. Like even about an inch or so lower is good. And then the other block, once I've got my head, oh, there's a nice sunbeam right here. Once I've got my head, once I've got this block under my shoulder blades done, then the head block, I just move that until it feels just right. And I like my head a little bit higher than my shoulders so that it's a little more of a slope. And you might want your head the same height or even a little lower so it's more like a fish pose. All right, so it feels good to me usually to take the arms out a little wide, and you can do the legs either out straight, which is feeling really nice to me right now, or if you want a little butterfly pose, you could do that instead. I'm sort of liking the way having the legs completely straight is giving me a little bit of a sense of opening through my primary hip flexor here. So I've got this little, kind of a little back bendy shape happening with the upper body. Oh, take a few moments to just kind of collect your mind. I don't know how your morning has been, whether you've had a lot of responsibilities so far to do, or whether you have mostly just kind of gotten yourself going. But it feels nice to take a few moments to just breathe and kind of pay attention to your body. And come home to your space. I like to think of my yoga mat kind of as my little sacred space. It's the place where I get to, once I'm on here, it's all about paying attention and being present. So we'll stay with this guy for about another minute or so. Okay, so we'll take about 2 more deep breaths. Now, while you're still up here, give yourself a little bit of a stretch. If it feels okay, you can drop the arms kind of like up and over your head a little bit. It's kind of feeling nice to me to grab my elbows and just sort of let that drop a little. Oh, just gives my triceps a bit of a stretch. Okay, so I'm going to take this block out from underneath my head. That's the first one. And then I'm going to roll over to the side and try to get this other block out from underneath me. I'm going to keep the blocks handy because I'll probably want those later. I'm going to set the blanket off to the side because I definitely don't need that right away. I might want it at the end though. So this is my favorite part of having the blocks, is that when I get off of the blocks, there's this really lovely sensation of my back changing shapes. Feels kind of like it spreads out really wide, which I appreciate. Ooh, and we're going to take the knees. Right now I'm just windshield wipering them back and forth. So we're going to do that for a moment. And then you can pick them up and bring them in toward you. And we're going to take the legs over to one side. Now you could go to the left first, or you could go to the right first. You might feel which one. I think for me it's going to be the right side first today. So I've taken my legs to the right. That means that my left chest muscle is going to be the one that's a little more stretchy. So I do this. I press down into my elbows and I kind of adjust my shoulders. And then it might be nicer to have the arm bone a little lower today or a little higher. Lower's feeling better, so I'm going to go with lower. And then I like to take one of my blocks and put it underneath or kind of beside my bottom leg and then drape my top leg over the top of the stack. This just gives me a little place. It's going to go in between today. A little place for my top thigh to land. Because this pulls me over a little bit more. Gives me a little bit more stretch in this IT band area. And then also for me, it gives me more stretch right here through the chest as well. And so pausing and taking some nice deep breaths. Nice. We're going to take one more breath here. And then we're going to pull it back to the center. Now, I just start by bringing the top leg back, and then the whole body follows. So pause again. Oh, rinse out all the parts that we're stretching. Oh. Okay, and then we're going to do the other side. So it usually takes me a few seconds for my back to be ready to go the other way. So once I'm over on this side, again, I'm going to adjust. I'm going to stick this guy right there and let that leg drop over. And then decide how I want that arm bone to lay out. And then noticing kind of the chest muscles opening and relaxing out, the outer hip opening and relaxing out. Pardon me, some nice deep breaths. Or a yawn. One more big breath. And again, we'll just come on back to the center. Now, just a moment, I'm going to let everything kind of rinse out. Move my block off to the side. Ooh. And then we're going to use this little side-to-side thing, a little bit of a twist to warm up the abdominals, okay? So we're going to bring the knees up, and you float the knees about over the top rim of the pelvis or right over the navel, somewhere in that neighborhood. And then the arms can reach out. I like to do sometimes the palms down. Sometimes it feels better to go palms up. You're going to bring the legs over to one side. Now, you could straighten the legs out if you've got a lot of room. I've got furniture here. So instead, I'm just going to curl my knees up in towards my armpit, come back through the center across the top of the belly button, and then hug the knees into the armpit. So going across and bringing it in, and going across and bringing it in. And this makes me travel down my mat, so that's always fun. I might run into the furniture on the other end of the room. So just keep on going. Oh. Back and forth a couple more times. last round. Now, when you get back to the center, we're going to pause there. We're going to grab hold of one leg. I'm going to back myself back up my mat. So I'm going to stretch the left leg out, grab the right leg, give it a hug. Oh. And hugging that leg in, I'm going to spin this foot in circles. And then we're going to circle it the other direction. And then we're going to point and flex the foot. Feels so good. All right, this is the fun part. So when you flex the foot back, you're going to see if you can straighten that leg all the way out. The answer might be no, I cannot. And then bend the knee and hug it in. Press the heel away. See if you can straighten that leg. Oh, feels so good. And hug it in. And one more time, press that heel away. Now we're going to leave that leg up here. And you can either put your hands behind your head and then curl up just with the elbow, or you can reach across with your hand, or you can take a block if you want to add a little bit more weight to this and bring that block up like that. This leg can hover off the floor, or you can leave it anchored, or you can even bend that knee to create more stability. So we're going to reach into both legs, come up 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5. Maybe 5 was enough. 4. Maybe you're going to keep going. 3, 2, and 1. Oh. Bring that leg back down. Give it a little rinse out. Oh, I love those things. Oh, I feel a little warmer on one side than the other. We've got that little oblique work there. Okay, so that leg that we were just working with, that guy we're going to stretch all the way out. Oh, give it a little shimmy. And then bring the other leg in and give that one a little hug. And we'll spin the foot around. Oh. Oh, and then go the other direction with your foot. And then we're going to point and flex the foot. Alright, so we're going to flex the foot back and then see if you can extend that leg all the way straight. Maybe it doesn't go all the way straight. Hug it in with the knee bent. Kick that heel away from you slowly. Find the stretch. And bend the knee and hug the leg in. And one more time, we're going to go out there and find that stretch. It might be there. You might not even need to go all the way straight to feel it. Flex the foot a little more. Oh, and then we're going to let it go. You're going to take that leg straight up. We're going to anchor through the opposite leg. Now, I turn the leg a little bit so the toes point up. And again, you can hover it. You can also leave it resting. And then we're going to take hold of either the block or hands behind the head, or just reach with one arm, okay? So we're going to take that block up towards the pinky toe, or the hand up towards the pinky toe. We got 9, 8. Try to feel yourself fire up from these obliques. 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, and 1. Oh. Put your block down, put your leg down. Oh, rinse out everything. Oh, I like some core work in the morning, y'all. So we're going to bring ourselves up to all fours. So you might decide that you're going to rock yourself up a few times. You might just be willing to roll over to your side and come on up to all fours that way. Now, I'm going to get my hair clip close by because I'm going to need that in a minute. For now, though, once you're up on all fours, you can move your spine through some of these different shapes, rounding it, extending it. Oh, adding some little hip jiggles or some other shapes along that line. And we're going to add a little upper back twist. Now the way that I do this is I take my knees slightly wider. Like I'm going to go into a wide ankle child's pose. I take one arm, thread it through, and then put that shoulder on the ground. Now I want my head to stay relatively weight free. So the weight is going in the shoulder. And then you can take this arm around your back. I generally use it just to hold the floor position. So my neck is mostly soft. And then you can move the hips back and forth a little bit, or you can pull backwards a little bit through your arm, because the arm is kind of pressed into the floor. And you can kind of lean into that a little bit by kind of pulling back. Oh. Just a little bit of a twist, a little bit of shoulder opener. So take 2 more breaths here. And then coming out of that shape, pause for a moment, give your body a chance to change shapes. Oh. Before we do the other side, I'm not quite ready. I'm going to take 2 more breaths. I'm waiting for that sensation of my spine kind of moving back towards neutral, where I don't feel one side of that twist more than the other. Okay, so I'm there. So we're going to take this other arm under, and again, try to go light on your head. It might be nice to pull back a bit through the shoulder. Move the hips slightly. Just looking for a space that feels really nice with this. Okay, 2 more breaths. And then we're going to escape from there. Give that upper back a little movement. Give your hips a little movement. So this is the point where I'm going to put my hair up before I go forward. But since you may not have to do that, you can go right into your downward facing dog. Oh. Now once you get to downward facing dog, you're going to take your dog for a bit of a walk. Right? So hands about shoulder distance apart, fingers nice and spread. Try to get your shoulder blades to go down your back as far as you can. In this case, it feels like they're going up because they're moving towards your hips, which is technically up because you're upside down. But you get the idea. Just get your shoulder blades into your back a little deeper. Lengthen back a bit through your hips if you can. And walk a bit in place to kind of get those heels and the calf muscles some stretch. Oh, all right. So I'm going to take myself forward into a forward bend, but I'm going to do this one step at a time. So now my dog is still kind of a dog, but my feet are a little closer. I can press my heels all the way down into the floor. Okay. So I'm going to take one more step forward. Now it's going to start to turn into more of a forward bend, because if I shift my weight back into my legs, my arms get really light. And then I think I can take one more step forward, a little baby one. And then I'm hanging upside down and there's no weight in my arms at all. So then I can pick my arms up, shake out the head, and come up about halfway, and then fold forward, maybe straightening the legs, maybe bending. A little bit of both I like. And then allowing myself to come all the way up to standing. Ooh, when it feels like the right time to do it. And giving a little side stretch here and there. Giving your shoulders a little movement. And then we're going to find ourselves at the top of our mat. Now you might already be at the top of your mat, or like me, it might be helpful to take one more step forward. Okay. So I like to do this little movement where I rock onto my toes and rock back a few times. It's like toes up, toes down. And then spread the toes out and let your feet find like the 4 kind of edges of your feet. So you've got like
the big toe mound and the little toe mound finding the floor. And then the edges of the heels, both inside and outside, finding the floor. And then a little soft in your knees, a little long through the tailbone. Let the shoulders relax down. If you want to turn the arms out, okay. I like to just let mine hang. And then pause with that mountain pose. Now I've got some plants and things within close proximity to me. So when I extend up, I'm going to bring my arms in and extend straight up. You might be able to do a little bigger, wider sweep. And then you're going to fold forward. We're going to come up halfway. Exhale, fold. Now, we're going to step back into a down dog to start with. And once you get to this down dog, we're going to come forward into a plank, a little round in the back, and then we're going to bend the knees and come back to dog. We're going to do this 3 times. Forward into plank, bend the knees, come back to down dog, and then come forward into plank. Now this time you can hold that plank. Now you can also modify the plank by bringing the knees down. And then we're going to lower down. Coming into cobra. We'll do 3 of these. And then 1 more. Now, coming back to down dog. So I have, like suddenly I have a little pain right in my little pinky finger area. So I might decide that I'm going to do my down dog on my forearms for a moment until I can work that out. If you would like to, you can come back to a full down dog, of course. And then we're going to take the right leg up and exhale and bring that knee in. Take it back up, bring it in, take it up, and we're going to hold steady and sink through that left heel. And then you're going to step that foot forward. Now because I'm on my forearms, I can't quite get there. So I'm going to step forward and then come back. So we're going to come to that warrior 1 position. So once I've got my front leg where I want it, I'm going to turn the heel so that I'm facing more at this kind of front level diagonal. And then coming up and making any little last minute adjustments to the legs. And then coming through a kind of movement pattern that gets the shoulders moving. So the arms up, arms back, hands forward, up, back, forward. Now we're going to fold forward towards this front leg, and then we're going to straighten out that leg and bend it. Straighten out the leg and bend it. And then straighten out the leg, and then we're going to come into a balance pose. So I'm going to bring the knee back over the ankle, wiggle this back foot in, or you can just go right into a lift. And then we're going to take this into a revolved half moon. So I've got a block here. You can also put your hand on the floor. So I'm standing on my right leg and the block is under my left hand. I'm going to start by leveling out my hip, lifting through my chest, and then adding the rotation and reaching into all the edges. I love this pose because it really strengthens this outer hip. And 2 more big breaths. And then we're going to step ourselves back and into downward dog. I'm going to see how that goes. Not too bad. And then you'll come forward into your plank, nice and round. Bend your knees, come back. Come forward, nice and round. Bend your knees, come back. Come into your plank, modified or full. And then we're going to lower down and come into your cobra or your upward dog. And then come on back to downward dog. Now, just to make things even, I'm going to do my other side on my elbows as well. And you can go back to the full downward dog. So left leg goes up, bring it in, stretch it back, bring it in, stretch it back, bring it in, and then we're going to step it forward. And again, you'll find your warrior 1 with props or no props. And again, kind of aiming yourself in the hip, a little more towards the front. then the side, and then coming up. And we'll take the arms up and bring it back, and push it forward, and take it up and bring it back and push it forward. Now we're going to do that one more time. Take it back, push it forward. Now, folding towards this front leg, we're going to straighten it out and bring it back to a bent position. So it's almost a lunge, but still that warrior 1 foot. Straighten it out. Bring it back towards that bent position. And then one more time, we're going to straighten it out. And then bring it back to that bent position, coming into the balance pose. So now I'm standing on my left leg. I've got my right hand on the block. I'm going to level the pelvis out, really lengthen through the spine. Add the twist and reach. Oh, it feels nice. Oh, I like this pose. It's intense, it's kind of hard, but it's fun. Nice big stretch. Oh, and then we'll come back, leg down, hands down, coming back to down dog. And then again, we're going to come forward into plank. Now this time, regardless, we're going to come all the way down. So we're going to come forward, bend the knees, come back, come forward, bend the knees, come back, and then we'll come forward into plank. Maintain that plank for 5, 4, 3, 2, and 1, and then we're coming all the way to the belly. So, in whatever way makes sense to get down. All right. So we're going to do a little cobra, but we're going to move the hands. So I'm starting with my hands quite high up. I'm going to lift into cobra using the back muscles. So this is a little baby cobra, okay? Then I'm going to slide the hands back about 1 inch and lift into cobra. I'm going to get a little more power from that one. I'm not using my hands to lift, but it does matter where the shoulders are. And then a little bit further back and lift. And then we're going to slide the hands a little further back and lift. And then we're going to maintain that cobra. So you can bring your hands a little further forward if that's helpful, or a little further back. But you're going to hold the cobra, rinse out the neck, shoulders are back. See if you can get a little more height, just lifting with your back muscles and your glutes. Work those legs. And then come on down with your exhale. And we'll pause for a moment, just do a little windshield wipers. Feels nice. And then we're going to go back into downward dog. So, from down dog, we're going to take ourselves back up to the top of our mat. So we're going to take a little walk, 1 step forward, and wiggle into it. And take another step forward, and wiggle into it. And it's possible that at this point, you may be more inclined to walk back with your hands until you're standing in a forward bend. And then come up halfway, and exhale, fold. And then we're going to come all the way to standing and give it a nice big stretch. Now, I'm going to turn and face you so you can see what I'm going to do. So I'm going to grab hold of my right wrist with my left hand. I'm going to take my right foot and bring it behind. So there's about like a foot or so, maybe 6 inches worth of space between my 2 feet front to back. Pressing down into my right heel and my left heel to create the stability, or lack thereof. We're going to just side bend. And it might feel better to turn the ribs a little more to the right or a little more to the left. So one more breath here. And then we're going to come back to the center. Shake the legs off for a moment. Find mountain pose for just a second. That feels nice. Can you feel the difference between the two sides? And then step your left foot back, and again, we're going to press into the heels. Grab the left wrist with the right hand. Again, it might be helpful to rotate the ribs a little bit differently. A little more forward, a little more back. Create the side stretch. Press into the feet. Last breath here. And then coming back. And again, kind of finding that mountain pose and feeling if there's a difference now having done both sides. Ooh, I like it. Okay, so we're gonna take a nice big inhale. Lift up, get tall. Exhale, fold forward. Inhale, come up halfway. Exhale, fold, and you'll step back into your down dog. And then you can add the vinyasa here, coming forward into plank, lowering down, doing your up dog or your cobra, or you can hang with me and just do this dog. And then we're gonna take the right leg up. Exhale, bring it across. Inhale, stretch it back. Now maybe you can even touch your opposite elbow. If you can't, don't sweat it, just bring it across. And then we're gonna step this foot forward and we're gonna come into warrior two. But again, we're gonna kind of do this like a little bit soft. So I've got my right foot forward. I'm gonna bring my left heel around so that now my pelvis is pointing more towards the side. And before I lift up, I'm just gonna check into that relationship. And then I'm gonna stand really strong on my legs and bring everything else up with me. And then we'll come back to this reverse warrior and we're gonna come into side angle. I'm gonna hold the side angle for a nice big breath. And then with my inhale, coming back to reverse warrior again. And then over into the side angle. Again, holding the side angle for a full breath. And then when my inhale finds me one more time, I'm coming back. Now I'm gonna straighten out my leg and come into triangle pose. And I'm gonna find that triangle pose by allowing the hips to move a little under and a little back. Sometimes it feels better for it to be under, sometimes it feels better for it to be back. I'm gonna decide how much length I want in my spine. Do I wanna use a block or my shin? And then I'm gonna take my top arm and I'm gonna create half of a bind by wrapping it behind my back. Now, you may decide you wanna float that arm up and that's fine too. So I'm gonna look down at my big toe for my inhale. And then as I exhale, I'm gonna rotate just a little more through my torso and then finish that with my head. Inhale, come back to the first part. Exhale, rotate the ribs, rotate my head. Inhale, back to the first point. And exhale and look up. Now, I'm gonna take this pose, release the arm. We're gonna come into a half moon balance. So I'm wiggling this back foot forward. I'm gonna take my arm forward. I might use the block, I might use the floor. And then I'm gonna lift. And the lift is coming from this outer hip. So I'm picking myself up with that outer hip, okay? So pick yourself up, lift, and create as lightness as you can on your hand. So the hand is here for balance, but it's light because we're doing so much work from the hip and the core. Take a nice big inhale, and then exhale, put both hands back down, both feet back down, and we'll take it back to down dog. And again, so here, it might be appropriate to do a vinyasa, or it might be appropriate to just give yourself a moment to feel those two sides. And with our friends back with us from down dog, we'll take this left leg up. We're gonna bring it across. You're gonna take it back and bring it across. And take it back, big long stretch, and then step it forward. And again, we're gonna take that kind of long, slow journey into warrior two. So finding the position of the legs nice and strong, lifting through the inner thighs, pushing the feet into the ground, getting really strong through the lower body, and letting the upper body float out of that. So coming back to reverse warrior and into a side angle and taking a nice whoo, big wobbly breath. Or not so wobbly as the case may be. Inhale to your reverse. Exhale to your side angle, nice big breath. And then inhale, your reverse warrior, straighten out your front leg, and we'll come into triangle. And again, kind of finding the triangle pose that works. I'm gonna do this half bind again with the head turn. Before I get there, I'm gonna make sure I like the way my legs are positioned and everything else. So inhaling with my head down, exhaling, turning it up. Little rotation in the ribs as well. Inhale, bring it down. Exhale, turn it up. Inhale, turning it back down. Hold on, exhale, turning it up. Sometimes I have to stop talking to you guys. One more time, inhale down. And exhale up. And then we're gonna come to that half moon bounce. I'm gonna free that bind. I'm gonna bring my leg forward. And again, I wanna try to imagine myself picking up from this part of my hip, so that I'm lifting really firmly up into that shape. Everything else is light. My hips are doing most of the work here. And my core. Nice light shape. One more breath. And then we're gonna take that back into downward dog. And we're gonna all come forward into the plank. So again, maybe you come down onto your elbows, maybe you use the blocks like I did last time, maybe you do a full plank with your hands on the floor, but we're gonna hold steady for 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and then come all the way down. All right. So give yourself room for your legs to extend. And we're gonna take the hands and reach them beside us. Now, for me, generally it's best if my palms are up. I can put the palm down. Sometimes that causes some funkiness in my shoulder. So you can decide, but I'm gonna leave my arms pressing into the floor, okay? I'm also gonna leave my head resting on the floor. So sometimes that's easier than others. So I might need to make some adjustments. I'm not gonna press down into my forehead, but I'm gonna let it stay on the ground. If that's impossible, then you can bring both your arms up here and rest your forehead on your arms for these little locust leg lifts. Now, we're gonna reach really firmly through the right leg and you're gonna lift it up. And try not to roll off of the hip. Like, try not to roll into your left hip. Keep the hips as level as possible. Lift that leg as high as it'll go. Bring it down, okay? So I'm pressing into the backs of my hands, letting my face rest heavy, or my forehead anyway. Lifting, trying to accommodate, making sure I'm not over tilting my pelvis. Lift that right leg, and down. Lift the left leg, and down. Lift the right leg, and down. Try to feel your glute pulling outward towards your outer thigh. Lift that leg, and down. One more time on each side. Right side, and down. Left side, and down. Now, we're gonna bring ourselves to a sphinx. So we're gonna put the elbows up front. Rinse out your neck a little bit. Now my elbow's a little forward of my shoulder and slightly in, because that's the best place. And this area that I was just trying to stretch out is the front of my hip. So again, I'm gonna do it again, but because I've lifted myself up into a back bend, I'm not gonna get as far with the leg. So I'm gonna take the right leg up, and that's as far as it lifts, right? And then put it back down. Left leg, as far as it goes, put it back down. Right leg, put it down. And again, I wanna try to fire my glutes so that it's like I'm wrapping my glutes around my outer thigh. So lift, glute fires around to the outer side. Right side, fire that glute around the outside. Left side, one more time. Okay, so we're gonna pause there. We're gonna stay with the Sphinx. You can windshield wipe your legs a little bit. Ooh, it's getting warm right here in my little sunspot. Ooh. All right, yogis, so we're gonna take ourselves into a bow shape. We're gonna hold the legs. Now I'm gonna hold one leg at a time, and I'm gonna do this with the aid of a strap. For you, you might be able to grab hold of your feet and you can do both at the same time, or you can do what I'm gonna do, and that's one at a time. So I have a strap. It has a loop made into it, and that's the part that's really useful, okay? So I'm gonna put my foot into this loop, and then I'm gonna take the strap over my shoulder. All right, so I can press my ankle or my foot into the loop. I'm gonna pull this leg in toward me, and again, I'm gonna fire up this thigh, right? and lift it off the floor. And without rolling off onto the other hip, I'm going to try to lift that leg, fire the glute, and bring it towards the outside edge so that I'm lifting. Now this gives me a little bit more control than if I try to hold onto my foot, which is mostly just about me trying to hold onto my foot. So having this little bit of extra room helps me really fire my glute up around the outside edge and lift my thigh. Okay? So I get this hip flexor stretch that I'm after. Some people have more range of motion than I do, especially in their knees. And so for you, this will be easy to do with holding onto your feet. Okay, so I'm doing the other side. Letting that side melt. Feels nice. And now I've got my ankle, or my shin bone, in my strap. Could be the top of the foot as well. I'm going to press my left hip down. I'm going to fire that left glute toward the outside edge of my left thigh, and I'm going to try to lift that left thigh off the floor. I'm pushing my foot into the strap and holding onto it so I have a little bit of structure. I really am firing that glute around the outside. That's what's going to help my knee stay happy. You can also flex the foot a little more. That also stabilizes the knee. And so, I'm trying to get that leg a little higher off the floor, but keep the firing going in my glute. So the glutes help release the hip flexors. So we're firing the glute on to help the hip flexor go. Now here's the thing. Sometimes our glutes are used to only firing in the upper part of the muscle, so they're used to this kind of squeezing in action, but this action of pulling the glute towards the outside edge requires that we fire the longer muscles near the bottom of the glute. And if our glutes aren't particularly strong, that'll be challenging, so that's part of the fun of this. So you're letting go with your feet, and then we're going to give ourselves a moment in child's pose to kind of rinse this whole thing out. If you would like, you can throw in a vinyasa sequence here as well. Go back to down dog, come forward into plank. Do your up dog or your cobra, whatever you like to do. And then come on back. And you can either meet me here in the child's pose or just hold your dog. It's not a particularly tight child's pose, but it gives me more room to maneuver my pelvis around. All right, so then we're going to take the right leg and bring it forward. And we're going to do a low lunge here that's going to turn into kind of a lizard. But before I get lizardy, I'm going to play with this same area that we were just trying to release, this hip flexor area. So I'm going to come forward and back, kind of balanced with the blocks. Forward and back. And I'm just feeling out the hip sockets and the way everything feels. And then I'm going to try to come down to just my hands here. So I'm kind of going to the diagonal on the left side, not a huge diagonal, but a little, and seeing like, can I bring my elbows to the floor? And then does it feel okay to drop this leg open? And then can I inch my way forward with my back hip and still be okay and happy here? Paying attention to the right groin, because it might be better to have this foot all the way on the floor and just turn the toes out instead of dropping the leg open. Okay? So you're feeling things out. You might even bend this back knee more and bring that foot in close enough that you can hold on to the foot. That's up to you. I almost never need that extra flavor. It's intense enough. So we're going to take 2 more breaths here. Now I'm going to back off of this and turn this into a half monkey pose, half Hanumanasana. So that's this kind of forward fold over the leg, or it could be a full splits front to back. That's between you and your hamstrings, but please be careful, because doing the splits is often a good way to tear your hamstrings. So be mindful. I'm going to take another deep breath here, and then we're going to turn this little dude into some kind of a pigeon shape. Now, the easiest thing, I guess, maybe it's easiest, is to kind of lean into the right hand and let that right leg just kind of bend itself into pigeon. And then you can adjust the angle and the shape based on how it feels. You can also add props under your hip. You can stay more upright. I'm going to use my blocks so that I'm a little bit low and a little bit high at the same time. And then the angle of your foot, shin, and front leg, it really depends on how your hip feels. So if it's better for you to have the knee a little closer to the center and the foot in a little tighter, do it that way. For me, having the knee bigger is always more helpful. And so I had to do, and I still do, when I do this pose for long periods of time, I put a lot of support underneath me because in order to accommodate my knee, I have to have my hip in a very vulnerable position. And so I want to be mindful of how I'm doing that. And am I doing it in a way that brings health and vitality to my body, or am I doing it in a way that depletes me? And those really are the questions we ask ourselves with all yoga poses. Because again, the Yoga Sutras tells us that the reason, or the qualities that we want to bring to yoga asana, the poses, are stability and a sense of well-being or sweetness. So if it's not making me feel well, I definitely want to check myself. All right, as per our conversation earlier. So I'm going to lean into this front right hip, and I'm bringing my left leg all the way around from behind me. And then I'm going to make this very simple. I'm just going to take a cross-legged position with my left leg in front. But you can have the knee up and wrap the legs into the half Lord of the Fishes shape or a similar shape. So I'm going to sit up nice and tall once I get here. Both sit bones should be even, and then I'm rotating myself towards the left. And I'm going to pause. I might, because I have short arms, I like to add a block to my hand in the back. Just gives me a place to rest that hand. I'm doing most of the work with my abdominal muscles and my spine to stay tall. And again, I'm going to do this head movement. So I'm going to look over the right shoulder. And then with my exhale, I'm going to slowly turn my head to look towards the left shoulder. And then inhale back toward the right. And exhale toward the left. And there might be a little pause at the end of each of those breath halves. Or just hang with that. If pauses and breath aren't right for you, don't do them. So we're going to come out of the pose now with the inhale. All right? Now, we're just going to pause for a second and feel. You might stretch out your legs and give them a little shake. Just letting the spine kind of reconfigure. All right, now what you could do is gather yourself up in a boat pose, roll over your legs, jump back into chaturanga, do an up dog, do a down dog, step into your low lunge on the other side. That would be very exciting. Or you can do this. Roll yourself into an all fours position, and then bring your left leg forward, along with a bottle of water, so that you can wet your mouth. All right, so then we're in this kind of shape, and I'm staying kind of low, but also not too low. And bringing the hip forward and back. Again, noticing, because the right side for me is always a little bit tighter. This hip is stronger. The thigh is stronger, and it doesn't give me as big a range of motion, okay? So now I'm here. That's where I first feel the sensation. Now I'm going to start to kind of drop myself into this diagonal, and I might wind up being able now, because my torso is lower, I can bring my hip a little further forward before I feel it again. And so I'm just making those little adjustments, maybe dropping this front leg open, maybe just turning that out. Again, you could grab that foot in the back if you're feeling like that would be a good answer for you. Take in one more big breath, yogis. And then we're going to kind of slowly back this up into our half Hanuman, Ardha Hanumanasana. Or you might wind up with a full Hanumanasana depending on your hamstring length and relative sensation. If you feel something in your hamstrings when you're just in the halfway position, you're probably good. You probably don't need to do the splits. I'm not going to stop you. You're at your house, but but I don't know if it's a good idea. Stop where you feel sensation and then surf it for a little while and see if it should change. So one more breath here. And then again, I'm going to kind of turn this into a pigeon. So to do that, I'm going to lean into this left hand. So I kind of take the weight a little bit over that way. So I can bring my left foot around. And then I can sort of inch myself into my little pigeon. And I have to change angles because I'm stuck in the corner here. Ugh. And again, you might decide to stay upright a little bit more or go down a little bit more. Depending on how this feels, your leg can be in a little tighter or out a little tighter, or kind of finding your pigeon. Given the circumstances and what's happening in your world. So we're going to take 2 more breaths. And then you're going to take your exhale, kind of lean into that left hip, bring your right leg around. If you're doing other legs, that's fine, but if you're following along, do that. And again, I'm going to come to a really simple cross-legged position with my right leg up front. Now, my normal way to sit cross-legged is with my left leg in front. So this automatically is weird, but it's not too weird, right? So if you need to bring the legs into a different position, you can. One leg can go straight. And then we're going to twist around. And I kind of come in and out. I get tall. You might even lean back a little bit and then bring yourself up. And sometimes one side twists a little more easily than the other side. You might have some, like I have a little slight scoliosis in part of my back that just gives me a slightly different twist one way or the other. It's not debilitating. It's just a little unique shape. So now, again, I'm going to do this thing with my head where I'm going to inhale my head towards turning it towards the front shoulder, and exhaling, turn it towards the back shoulder. And I might linger at the tippy top of that inhale before exhaling the other way. And I might linger at the end of the exhale before inhaling the other way. So I'm going to do that twice more. Trying not to let my neck influence me too much. The neck is kind of free floating. The upper back stays with the twist, even though I'm turning my head the other direction. And now the whole thing is going to come out together with my inhale. And again, it's going to take a second for my back to change back into its original shape. While that's happening, I can be giving myself a little jiggle. A little movement. Okay, yogis. So it is pretty darn close to Shavasana time. We're going to do Shavasana with a little bit of happy baby love. So again, you may want to have your blanket. Again, if you have a blanket, I'm going to put a blanket under my head. And then you could use your blocks if that's what you've got handy. I'm going to take these 2 throw pillows that I've got right next to my space here, and those are going to go under my legs in a minute. Not quite yet, but soon. So we're going to bring ourselves around and onto the back. Once you get there, take a few moments to do some little movements. So it might be a little windshield wiper movement. It might be more of a happy baby. You might want to do like a little lift into plow and a come back down, and a lift into plow and a come back down. Or, like a shoulder stand kind of movement.
So you're just kind of choosing a movement that's going to work best for you. I'm experimenting with this kind of like little inner thigh stretch here, and a little bit more with holding onto the feet. It gets a little more interesting. Now I'm going to end my practice with a butterfly shape. So that's what I have the pillows handy for. You could straighten your legs all the way out. So I'm going to put my feet together. I'm going to lower my legs down to the ground, or lower my feet down to the ground, and then I'm going to tuck a little pillow underneath each little wing of my butterfly there, underneath each thigh or knee, and then adjust them until it feels just right. And then I'm going to adjust the head support so that I've got like a tiny little roll to support the neck and just enough under my head. Adjust your shoulders and allow yourself to relax. So maybe you're doing this little butterfly shape, or maybe you're just doing a straight leg shape. The thing that makes this a shape that I can relax in is the pillows, right? That's what makes it soft. So whatever pose you're doing, let it get soft. Take deep breaths. And let your body relax completely. It's especially helpful to relax around the mouth and around the eyes. Now, yogis, we're not going to move right away. But do this. Bring into your heart a sense of gratitude for the things you have in your life. Both the things that are going really well, and also the things that are challenging you right now. Because often the challenges in life are the things that help us grow the most. So if we can express some gratitude for the opportunity to grow, as well as the things that make us happy and joyful and content. And try to fill your heart up with that gratitude, just feeling those notions of thank you. And then we're going to take a moment and send as much heart energy, light energy into the world as we can, surrounding those people that are struggling with health issues at this time, whether it's from the coronavirus or from other health issues, or even you, if you have a health issue and you want to imagine your body surrounded in light, imagine that. And so imagining that all the beings on the planet, and not just the humans, but also all the other beings that are suffering, we can imagine them being lifted up and given health and vitality. It's a trick of the mind, but it's a delightful trick of the mind to imagine people vital and healthy. And the last thing that we're going to do is we're going to imagine that the earth is replenished and is a garden full of abundance for all beings. That all beings have a home and an ecosystem in which to live and survive. And that we care for the earth in a way that's sustainable for all of us. And so imagine that lush garden of abundance all around us. And then yogis, you're going to stretch into your fingers and toes. Give them a little wiggle, stretch into your arms and legs. Give yourself some little bananas or some wrist and ankle circles. You can, of course, oh sorry buddy, you can bring your knees in, give yourself a little hug and a back massage for the road. It's good to hug your favorite yogi every day. And then we're going to roll onto our side. Or you could rock yourself up if that's your jam. And then we'll bring ourselves up. So there's a little project going on in the world right now where every time the clock strikes 11 or 1, so the ones, 1 or 11, or 11:11 or 1:11, like anytime you got some ones, if you notice the clock in that time, take those little prayer moments and put in those little moments. Gratitude for what you have, health and vitality to all beings, and an abundant and beautiful earth. It's a little project going on out in the world to see if we can shift all of our consciousness as a group. Take a nice big breath and a big deep sigh. And enjoy the rest of your day, yogis. Namaste.